Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is I. Yes, it is me. BRENNON here again with another episode, another week, another version of the RAN Rundown for Retroactive Navy Fantasy Football. I'm trying something different this week. I don't know if you're in rap or if you're in Ray. And you've already seen those recaps and reviews, but I'm trying a different format. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Basically doing a screen recording to where you can see the scores. You can see the numbers. You can see what it is I'm reviewing and what I'm speaking on so that you can follow along with what I'm reviewing or what I'm running down over here in Navy. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Looking at my terrible matchup, pretty much went 1-2 this week in my different retro leagues, 1-3 overall for all the leagues I'm in. Because of a lot of poor performances in some leagues like this one, and a lot of injuries in other leagues. But I have no excuse for my performance in Navy. I just have a pretty bad drafted team between Devontae Adams, Anthony Richardson. Well, not drafted, but injuries and poorly drafted. Devontae Adams, Anthony Richardson, Nick Chubb, and TJ Hawkinson, which are doing nothing for me in the IR. And then I have other guys that just aren't showing up, like Calvin Ridley and Michael Wilson. And, oh, yeah, here goes DeAndre Swift for 1 week when it's not going to make much of a difference. And then Kirk Cousins, who had 1 week and pretty much nothing else from anyone else. So the Cobalt, Indigo, Navy, Gloom team are not playing like royalty this season. Taking the L to Special Weapons and Tactics, aka CJ Matthews, 223.42 to 194.82. Solid win for CJ. Not necessarily impressive. However, it was enough. His team did what they needed to do. The offense all performed. My offense all did not. Even the single-digit scores were pretty high-end single digits, nines from Bijan and Josh Jacobs and Shaq Thompson, who is going to be difficult to replace, especially without us being able to trade in this league. But it was enough for the win this week. Olave, Diggs, Freiermuth, Xavier Worthy, they all did their thing. Even Brock Purdy put up 15. It was just enough. It was a enough performance from CJ and the SWAT team. Minka Fitzpatrick popped out for 15. Julian Blackman, Mike Hughes, both solid double-digit performances, and Evan McPherson. So the whole team showed up. Even though it was a low-end team performance, it was a team performance to get the 223. Not just 2 or 3 big performances and duds from everybody else. Good win for you, CJ. I'm not even going to speak on my team. Too Sweet, a.k.a. Harrison Decker. He ended up taking the L this week against Big Balls, 1988. I think that's Will. I'm not sure. 250.92 points. Solid performances. Kind of what I was speaking to with CJ's team. Rather than being a evenly distributed team performance, just a couple of big performances from a few guys. Robert Spillane, the leading defensive player in IDP, 22 points. Jameson Williams, 2 catches, produced 20 fantasy points. And Chuba Hubbard went for 22.1 points. Kyron Williams, also an impressive performance with 18.4, but not much else from anyone else. Nick Cross, 19. Dorian Williams, 22.5. A couple 14s from, who is that? Brandon Jones and Denzel Perryman. But a lot of dud performances. D-line, okay. You never want to see a goose egg. But you had 2 goose eggs and still put up a 250. So pretty impressive from the guys that were supposed to do more for you who didn't, and still to get a 250. Pretty impressive. Not a bad score from Harrison, just not enough for this week. 29.5 from Stroud. Amon Ra did his thing. Offense, pretty pedestrian outside of that. The running backs were okay. Almost 10 points and 12 points from the running backs. Linebackers, pretty solid, above solid, pretty good, really good. With EJ Speed, Rosenboom, and Tranquil. Kyle Van Noy has been on a tear the past couple weeks. 6 sacks in 3 weeks. I picked him up, I think, in wrap, just to see if that heater is going to continue. I doubt it, but hey, I missed out on him 2 weeks while I was just waiting to see, play the wait and see approach. I'm just going to see if I can ride that wave too. So kudos for you having him on the roster, even though it didn't pan out this week. Jair Brown, 16.5. So just one of those weeks, like I said, the guys you expect to show up didn't necessarily. And the guys that you normally depend on, the linebacker carried the scoring, but a couple other guys that were supposed to do more just were MIA. Jesse Bates, Sam Hubbard. So we'll see how it goes next week. B2K proxies. I did it again. Dang it. BTK2 proxies. Got the win this week against Dan's driven team. I don't think I've seen Dan in the chat one time. Nevertheless, we'll see how his record's doing, if his record matches his chat performance. Good win for Black Rob. Not a great score, but in a low-scoring matchup, he did enough. Pat Mahomes, 18. Negative scoring from Carson Steele. Didn't expect that after last week's performance, but the Chargers have been showing a pretty solid defense. No contribution from the running backs, but enough contribution from the receivers. Nico Collins, Michael Pittman both went for 15 plus. Nothing from the flexes. Well, Antonio Gibson went for 9. That's solid. That's definitely a difference maker in this kind of matchup. 18 from Quincy Williams, 15 from Kyle Hamilton, 31 from Jaquan Brisker. The defensive flexes both gave double digits, so it's just an ugly matchup all the way around. Nothing much from Dan's driven team outside of Kamara and Burrow. On offense, all the linebackers showed up decently on defense, but then nothing from the D-line, nothing from the DBs. Kirby Joseph went for 21.5. So that was an ugly one. But champions do what champions do. They pull out victories in ugly conditions. So kudos to you for the win, Black Rob. Majestic 12 got the win. Forget who this is. Majestic 12 is Walt. Also pretty quiet in the chat, although he has said more than Dan. 234 to 190 against Dreams and Nightmares, who is Cortez Jackson. I would consider this an upset win, primarily because of how Josh Allen showed up or didn't show up, as well as James Cook. That whole Buffalo offense just looked terrible on Sunday night, and I think that was the difference in the matchup, at least keeping it closer, if not pulling out the victory. But to the victor goes the spoils. Sam Darnold went for 25.5. Justin Jefferson having 2 parts of that Minnesota offense, really beneficial for this particular season with how they've been playing. Terry McLaurin's finally stepping it up as well, set 14.7 points. They're getting him more involved in that Washington offense. Cortland Sutton went for 13.5. Not a great score, but a really good score. Tyrese Knight, 17. Great pickup for Walt. I was big on Tyrese coming into this season and going into the draft. JC Horn, 18 points. Younghoe Koo, I almost said the other way. Younghoe Koo, 18 points. So yeah, not a lot of solid performances from a lot of guys, but it was enough bigger performances from a few, fewer guys. Offense, MIA for Cortez. Rashid Shaheed, 8 catches for 83 yards. Travis Kelce, 7 for 89 yards. They both gave good fantasy performances, no touchdowns. And the rest of the offense just didn't do what they were supposed to do. Trey Tucker, good pickup and replacement of Devontae Adams. But yeah, needed more from your offense, particularly the Buffalo Bills up top. Linebackers did pretty well. Quay, Cody Barton, Sherwood. Nothing much from the D line and the DBs, all double digits. So kept you in a respectable scoring range, close to 200, but and I said just needed more from the offense. F around and find out. ENT, aka SIP, Devon Sip Tingle, 268.76 versus Kevin Grabowski, aka Vito Nader Supreme, a 218.82. Very impressive victory. Very good showing in the leagues that SIP is in. I believe just Navy and Purple. Good roster construction. I thought that it was questionable for both drafts, but he's proven me wrong. Especially in this no trade league, it kind of suits SIP's overall strategy. He's not a big trader. So having Derrick Henry can cover a multitude of issues with your roster. 40.4 points, 95-yard touchdown run. Kept the party going. I almost said he got the party going, but that was Sunday night, so it was already the ball was already rolling for FAFO. Tony Pollard, 17.8 points. Jordan Addison, 21.4 points. He's been missing. He's been waiting to join the Minnesota party, and he finally got involved. Not much else from the offense, but the defense went off. Bobby Wagner, 21 points. Zaire Franklin, 16.5. Paulson Adebo, 32 points. Raekwon McMillan, Antonio Johnson, Jordan Whitehead, Xavier McKinney. Everybody wanted their bits of double digits, and they all got it. Bobby Okereke went for 14. Really, really good score. That 40 ball boosted the score. It probably would have been closer to 230, 240, which is still a respectable score. Would have got the job done either way this week. Jaden Daniels went for 26.02 for Kevin. Mike Evans, 19.4. Deontay Johnson, 17.8. A couple guys carried the offense. Blake Cashman went for 20. And then nothing else from the defense. Jermaine Pratt went for 17, but the defense really let Kevin down this week. Very similar to a team I mentioned in Ray, who had good defensive players. They just didn't show up. Kayvon is going to be rough all season unless the Giants can get more leads and he can just pin his ears back and rush the passer. Michael Parsons gets hurt, but he was pretty ineffective throughout the season thus far, compared to his standard of being one of the top D linemen in fantasy. Yeah, Ernest Jones, only 9 points. It's just not that you need more from him. He's just supposed to produce more than that. Zach Bond only went for 9. So yeah, defense shows up differently for Kevin. Probably would have been a closer matchup. Still would have went in SIP's favor, but those guys not showing up created that big gap between the two. Grounded Jets, Robert Sellers took a L, 188.28 against the Bells Battalion, aka Janine Truesdale, 226.36. Not a great score, but as I've mentioned, kind of the theme this week for many teams in different leagues. Do enough to win that week. 226. Seems like that might be a trend in the coming weeks. That a 220, 230 can get it done in most weeks. And that's just probably because offenses have been down around the league in the NFL. Jordan Mason went for 25. Malik Neighbors, 19.1. Definitely proved me wrong. I knew he would be a good rookie, but I didn't know he would be a great rookie, upper echelon rookie, top 10 in the NFL overall type of rookie. But even with Daniel Jones at quarterback, he's proven that to be true. Jamar Chase, 23 points. One big play for the most part, but that was enough. Brian Robinson Jr., 28.8 points. Kaiser White, 15. Dotson, 17. A lot of guys didn't show up, low-end double-digit scores, but the guys that did showed up, they showed up big enough to account for the guys that didn't. Carlton Davis, 20 points. So really good win in another low-scoring affair. Jonathan Taylor went for 18.3 for Robert. James Conner 19.8. But not enough from the other guys. DK went for 12.9, but yeah, just not a good enough showing on Roberts' part. Davis Dangerous Team, aka D Will. Impressive win, 274.28 to 243.54. Probably Juan Redmond's best team in Retroactive is in Retroactive Navy. And Negus and Perdition still took the L, 243 points. Just a bad matchup, to be fair. 33 points from Baker Mayfield, 33 points from Kenneth Walker Jr., or the third, who had a really good game Monday night. I didn't see the Philly game for Baker, but those numbers look great. Marvin Harrison Jr., 13. Zach Moss, 15.8. The running backs went crazy for Cincinnati this week against Carolina. And Carolina was actually competing. It wasn't like Carolina was just laying down. But between Shaq Thompson getting hurt and Carolina just not being a very good team overall, Cincinnati just grounded them to dust, even though it was still pretty close to the end. Xavier Legette popped out, 16.6 points. I was really big on him coming out of the draft in that rookie class. Levante David, 28 points. Jack Campbell, 18, had a big forced fumble to keep the party going in Detroit. Demario Overshown, 16. Really good linebacker performances there. Myles Garrett gave 14 points at D lineman, even though Aiden Hutchinson put up a goose egg, who was probably one of the best defensive players in IDP overall, let alone defensive lineman. Still got 274 as a team. So it's really, really impressive. 18 from Tony Adams. Anzalone went for 14. I didn't know you had both linebackers from Detroit. It might actually work out for you. Similar to what's happening over there in Cincinnati. Both of those linebackers. And another goose egg from Jordan Poyer. So you had 2 goose eggs and you got 274. That's scary. The team name is actually applicable. Even though it's a terrible team name, it's actually applicable. Because these guys that you got, those names that I read, are dangerous. A lot of dangerous talent. It looks like a really good draft that you did. Really good. On the other side, again, really good score. Aaron Rodgers has not panned out thus far as what many expected in fantasy. Tajay Spears, 10 points. A pretty impressive Titans victory, but only 10 points. Pickens, 13. McConkey, 15.2. Yeah. Looks like the defense had to the defense popped out for you. Troy Anderson gave you the 42 ball with that pick 6, 17 total tackles, 20 points from Keyshawn Nixon, 19 from Bynum, 13 from TJ Edwards, 23 from Fred Warner. So the defense got busy and definitely carried the roster. But in this particular matchup, you needed more from your offensive flexes. You needed more from your quarterback and your running backs. Just needed more. So in most weeks, that would have been a good enough score, but just not this week. Finally, Mr. Cacafuego, a.k.a. Christopher Stanky, got the victory over Suicide Squad, a.k.a. Larry Edwards. 258 to 209. Good win for Chris. Justin Fields, 33 points. Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley. That's a good running back tandem. Nothing from your receivers. Great things from your flexes. You focus heavy on running back. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery from the Lions both gave you double digits. So that was enough for your offense. Then the defense did their thing. Jordan Brooks, Kenneth Murray Jr., Montez Sweat, Buda Baker, Dax Hill, Kevin Byard. That's enough. Jake Moody gave you 12 points at kicker. Solid, balanced scoring across the board, even though you had 2 goose eggs. Very similar to D. Will. Still managed to put up a 258. So great game for you, Chris. Not so great game for Larry. 26.64 from Lamar Jackson. Nothing from his running backs. 12. Jaden Reed, 25.6. had some really, really good performances from many guys, but you had really, really bad performances from many guys. A 2 from Quincy Williams. Julian Love only gave you 7. Justin Simmons 1. Key guys that if they score well, you put up a way better score than this. You don't have to score like exceptional, just normal scores, and you would have been much more competitive this week. Jabril Peppers went for 19. Nick Bosa, wasted performance of 19, unfortunately. But yeah, better weeks to come just from looking at some of those names for Larry. Definitely have to hit the wire a little more, but could be competitive versus my situation, what I got going over here. This is a dumpster fire. All right. Looking at the standings, Grounded Jets is in first place in the Cobalt division. I wasn't expecting that. Tied for first with Black Rob. Deep Blue is led by D Will, appropriately. Tied for that division lead with CJ. Both teams very competitive, so that'll be an interesting division to watch down the stretch. At least between those two, I don't think Kevin or Larry can catch up much. Unless Larry hits the wire. If Larry decides to get more active, he could make a case down the stretch, but I don't see that happening. San Diego division, Big Balls and Dan's Driven Team, both tied for first place. I'm not sure about Dan's Driven Team going forward, just looking at the points forced and some of those previous wins that he had before he lost his first matchup. I think this was the first matchup he lost. Dan's Driven Team. Yeah, first loss for him against Black Rob. Those scores finally started to catch up with him, so I think that might be a smoke screen of a 3-1 versus Dreams and Nightmares lingering behind him and Will Schaefer ahead of him. And then in the Pearl Harbor division, Mr. Cacafuego tied for first with Bell's Battalion. Also going to be a good race down the stretch, especially if Sip continues to put up the scores that he's been putting up. From the points force here, you can see he's leading. He's actually in second place in the division. It's just that one win back. So going to look at the playoff brackets in the coming month as we get more into November, halfway through the year, and we'll start to analyze that. But that's my rundown of Retroactive Navy for week 4 of the 2024 season. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, feelings, fears, doubts, etc., DM me on Discord or message me on Facebook Messenger. If you have anything personal you want to discuss, you can call me, text me, and we can handle that. All right. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Hope y'all are enjoying your week. Hope you have a good week 5. I will holler at y'all next week. Peace.